Throw hand!
Hello, everyone, and thank you for that, gentlemen. Welcome back to Rohan's Corner. And this week is the culmination of my two-part special on characters from the past. I'd like to come back to the main screen. We talked about last week the Decepticons, Predacons, evil characters. This week I'm talking about the Autobots, or Maximals, or other good characters, as well as the non-Transformers characters I'd like to see again in an upcoming TV show. So without further ado, let's go into it. And we start off with Transformers Cybertron Vector Prime. And why do you say I want to bring this character back? Well, that's pretty straightforward. A time traveling character is always interesting, and the fact that Vector Prime was a very well spoken and old guard kind of character, had a great sword and a cool ophthalmology as well, which didn't get showcased very much in the show. But I really like the character. I think he could have a lot more depth. The way he died in Cybertron was sad, and I'd like to see some more history from him before that whole sequence occurred, and maybe he could travel back in time before that or something. The time travel element gives it so much to play with. Then we got G1 Sandstorm, and as I mentioned earlier, the buddy capability with Octane would be really cool, but also his enthusiasm, the element from Paradron. I'd love to hark back to some of those elements because I think that was really cool. And again, another really nice triple changer with a unique paint scheme in orange. I'd like to see Sandstorm back in some way, shape, or form. Generation 1 Devcon. This character only had one episode, but he actually made a big impact on me and a few other people in Transformers history. And I think it's purely down to the fact that Devcon had this huge backstory which they didn't utilize about he'd been out off Cybertron, where he'd been for millennia, we don't know. He'd become a bounty hunter, and he'd had partners in the past. Maybe he could have had other Autobots or Decepticons who joined up with the characters that we saw on screen later, or vice versa. Maybe some who'd left the Generation 1 or other timelines had gone on to join with Devcon and join his bounty hunting. Who knows? But there's so much depth to that character that could be explored further. I'd love to see what happened to him after Generation 1 as well. G1 Trailbreaker, I just like the character. His one-liners, his ability with the force field, his really slow and downtrodden attitude. I just didn't think he got enough screen time in G1. He didn't get enough development, and I'd like to see him come back because we've had characters like Prowl and others like Ironhide who've come back in different guises, but we've never seen Trailbreaker get another chance. G1 Blue Streak in the same guise, very funny character, got a lot of jokes in. Not all of them were well received by the Autobots in Generation 1. I'd like to see more from Blue Streak. Again, one of the Datsun brothers, very cool alt mode, and was supposed to be a gunner. We never really saw a lot of that, but had a lot of weaponry, and I'd like to see that showcased in the future with that character coming back in on screen. We've had toys of him, but we haven't had character. And G1 Windcharger. I think this character was, again, one of those mini-bots who didn't get a lot of screen time in the couple of episodes where he did get to the forefront. I really liked him. He seemed to be intelligent. He seemed to be, again, well-spoken, and he had something to offer. And I'd like to see G1 type of Windcharger coming back, again, in a small Autobot guise, so he could be a scout or some sort of mini leader there, if that makes sense. And that brings me on to the non-Transformers characters I'd like to see. There's only two, but from Generation 1, King Nergiel, who was the leader of Subatlantica, the sunken world that was found, and actually joined up with Megatron's forces to rise Subatlantica back to the surface of the Earth and try and take over the Earth. That character was brilliant. He had so much cynicism, so much evil thought process. He tried to overthrow Megatron several times. Starscream never trusted him. And at the end, we don't really know what happened to him. Did he die? We thought he would see him again, potentially. I'd love to see that character come back again. Again, it doesn't have to be every episode prominent character. I'd just like to see one episode with him sprung in somewhere. Just showcase what had happened to Subatlantica. Maybe he managed to get off Earth and somehow comes back in a space episode where Subatlantica has now become a spaceship or something. And the last one, Beast Machine's diagnostics drone. If anybody remembers, this was Megatron's little drone who was helping him carry out his tasks and basically his lackey. But he was very funny. He was a little flying drone. Didn't really see what he transformed into. Was often getting beaten by Megatron and attacked. And again, well spoken. But yeah, I really like that character. So those are my 15 favourite characters from previous series that didn't get a lot of airtime. I'd like to see get more focus on in another series again. What do you all think? Who are your characters you like to bring back from an old series? Let us know. And for another week, I've been Rohan on Rohan's Corner. Back to the studio.
Hey boys, we've been rumbled. Well, let's bounce.